Hello, Ashley here, and today I'm going to walk you through exactly what a sample GI map stool test report looks like. If you've been following me for quite some time, you know I talk about this test a lot. It has been absolutely transformational in my own health journey as well as my clients, and I really do attribute this test to being the solution and the reason why I have been able to get to where I am in my own health journey, the reason my clients get such fantastic results, because we just simply get so much data that really helps us identify those root causes of symptoms. It allows us to connect the dots and understand why things like gas, bloating, fatigue, heartburn, anxiety, joint pain, headaches, migraines, the list goes on. It gives us an understanding as to why these symptoms are happening in the first place. So, without further ado, I'm not going to ramble on about how much I love this test. I am just going to show you exactly what we see on this test. And then I want to show you when we do have all this data, when we do finally know what's truly going on, what do we do then? So I'm going to take you through a very quick kind of sample action plan that I would give to one of my clients. So the first thing I want to say, because I get this question quite a bit, is, like, why the tests that my doctor runs, why aren't they enough? Like, why is this different? How is this different? What do we see on this test? I mean, I'll show you what we see, but, the reason this test is so different, it is a comprehensive diagnostic tool that can provide so much more valuable information about the health of the gut microbiome. Okay, what's going on internally from a functional standpoint? How is the function of the gut working? So it does go above and beyond, like I said, a traditional, blood test. It does give us more information than endoscopy or a standard stool sample that most doctors run. And the reason this is different and far superior is because the test is using genome sequencing, which means this test is pulling apart the DNA found in that stool sample to screen for a variety of things that a traditional stool test would not screen for. So here we're looking for things like bacteria. Are there parasites? Are there yeasts and candida? Is there a gluten sensitivity present? We get to see that. What other inflammatory sources are we seeing? What's going on with digestive function, and so much more. So these are the things that we get in this test. And I'll be honest, there's only a small handful of functional tests on the market that look for these things. And this is by far the most superior. It is my absolute favorite. And I've tried a couple different ones over the last several years. Okay, so let's dive right in. And let's take a look at what we would see on this test. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. Let me just pop this up. So this is a sample report that we are going to go through today. Okay. So in very simple terms, aside from what I've already mentioned in terms of what we're seeing on this test, there's one key thing I want you to know, and that is the bacteria in the gut run the show. If we have harmful bacteria in the gut, that's gonna have significant health consequences. Certain bacteria in the body can cause things like brain fog. So candida can cause sugar cravings, brain fog, memory lapses, fatigue, and the list goes on. So if we have certain harmful bacteria in the body, that can create negative health consequences. Okay, the same thing is true if we don't have enough of the good bacteria. So the good bacteria in our body helps with things like nutrient absorption, like digestion, breaking down your food, helps with things like metabolism, energy, helps with sleep, helps with iron absorption, and so much more. Okay, so we want to have the right balance of bacteria in the body. We don't want too much of the harmful, really, we don't want any for that matter, and we want the right balance of good. Okay, so with that said, let's take a look. So this first page that I have been on as I've been chatting away here, we're looking at some of the harmful bacteria species that this test is testing for. So if we were to see, let me make this a little bigger. If we were to see a pathogen or a bacteria detected, it would show up here. So on this page, none of these species were detected for this sample client. So as you can see, C. difficile, you've probably heard of that before. E. coli, salmonella, those are those foodborne bacterias that can start to elevate in the body if we are exposed to them. Generally speaking, we should be able to get rid of those bacteria species, but they can start to elevate in the body if there is an environment that feeds those species. Okay, so this page, we're not seeing anything. We're looking at some parasites. Nothing is detected here. On the following page, we are looking for H. pylori. So I've talked about this a little bit. If you've been following me for some time, H. pylori is present probably in about 50% of the population. It is largely responsible for a lot of digestive upsets like gas, bloating, indigestion. Heartburn is a huge one. If you suffer from chronic heartburn, acid reflux, good chance you've got an overgrowth of H. pylori, okay? So we can see this sample person, this sample client, they do have H. pylori above the reference range of what we would want to see. And so this is going to be something that we're going to need to support in terms of a treatment plan. Okay, moving forward, we get to see the beneficial bacteria. So remember, I said there are key bacteria species in the body that are responsible for certain functions. We need certain bacteria species. So these are some of them here, and we want to be seeing in this nice, healthy green range. So if we have too much, it can be problematic. If we have too little, it can also be problematic, which is why this can be a little bit of a tricky business. So just for the sake of this video and not being too lengthy, one of the ones I really like to look at is this Akkermansia species. It is so incredibly important for our immune system, and it helps to maintain a healthy stomach lining. So when I see Akkermansia depleted, there's a good chance, well, 90% chance plus that we're dealing with leaky gut, okay? Because if this bacteria species holds the tight junctions of the stomach lining together, if we're not seeing that species, we know that there's holes in the stomach. So with leaky gut, we're going to see an immune system activation. We're going to see things like headaches, food sensitivities, um, even joint pain, mood changes, etc., lack of nutrient absorption. So we when we see imbalances here or dysbiosis here, we really got to support and rebuild the beneficial bacteria in the gut. That's sort of step two. First we got to get rid of the harmful, then we got to rebuild. Okay, so again, to keep this video a little bit more concise, I'm going to keep moving through. We get to see even more insights here for overgrowths. These are other opportunistic species, things that we do not want to see in elevation. Now, it's important to know on this page, the reason why this is broken up and separate from this first page is we really don't want to see like any really of these species detected. Remember what I said here, if too much is problematic, too little is also problematic. The same goes for these species. We can have a little bit, is not necessarily an issue if we have a little bit of these species on board. The problem is when it becomes so incredibly elevated, as you can see here, that is a cause for concern. We're going to see digestive symptoms arise. So one interesting one, it's not incredibly elevated on this report, but I actually do see this with, I'd say at least 70% of my clients, is this streptococcus. So if you are prone to getting sick often, sore throats, strep throat, likely you have an overgrowth of this streptococcus, and so you're continually getting ill, okay? Now, one of the things we can do as part of treatment is kill that species in the mouth. So I do have an oral protocol. It is like an oral rinse that really helps to get all of the species that typically are found and live dormant in our oral microbiome inside the mouth. Okay. Okay. Of course, as you can see, there are many other bacteria species that we're looking for. This is going to cause, again, inflammation, dysbiosis in the body. It's going to be really important as a treatment, as an action plan that we are eradicating, lowering these species back to a more normalized range and so forth. So this particular client does not have candida. We do test for, we get to see candida as well as a few other species of yeasts on this test. So if you are experiencing, a lot of brain fog, you have like that oral thrush, like that white coated tongue in the morning, sugar cravings, if you get UTIs often, that is actually quite a big sign that you may have a yeast or a candida overgrowth. So we would look at that here. Okay, we're testing for a couple viruses here. And then, of course, parasites. We get to see that here. This client does not have parasites, which is great. They are a little bit tricky to get rid of, but again, 100% possible to eradicate parasites as well as yeasts. Okay, finally, just to sort of wrap this up, we are looking at digestive function as well. So one thing I'll say, we actually do get insight when we're looking at the bacteria. That does give us some insight as to how digestion is functioning. So for example, if H. pylori is present, if there's a lot of bacterial overgrowth like there is in this particular case or this sample, we know that there's likely low stomach acid, and we need stomach acid to break down our food. Now, the reason we can infer that there's low stomach acid because there's all these bacteria species is because if our stomach is highly acidic, if we have enough stomach acid on board, it should keep those harmful bacteria species sort of in a neutralized normal range. It should prevent them from sort of taking over and becoming extremely problematic and elevated. Okay. So already with this client, I can infer that they have low stomach acid present. Okay. Here we look at some other markers for digestion. I see this one here is green, but I do see this often. A lot of my clients who suffer from like a lot of like gas, bloating, like foul smelling stools and gas, feeling really tired after eating, constipation. I often will see this elastase elevated. That's a sign that the body's not digesting food, specifically protein, appropriately because there's not enough pancreatic enzymes on board. And then this up here, this steatocrit is telling us more so with regards to carbohydrate digestion. Okay, most of my clients, this is actually usually pretty good. Okay, here we're seeing a few other markers for inflammation. This beta glucuronidase is the only reason I'm going to mention this here. My clients who suffer from really heavy, painful periods have issues like hormonal issues. There could be an issue with how the body is eliminating estrogen. So if you've heard of estrogen dominance, what happens there is estrogen, well, one, estrogen's either too high, or two, estrogen is having a hard time getting out of the body. And that could be because we're not eliminating it from our stool. So this marker tells us that. Okay. Like I said, not a problem for this client, but I just wanted to explain what that means. Okay, oculate blood, sign of inflammation. Same thing with these markers down here, inflammation, the calprotectin. This is a really big red flag if we're seeing it in the red, a sign of chronic IBS, IBD. We know that there is a ton of inflammation in the body coming from, it could be, again, those bacterial infections. There could be something else going on in the gut from a structural standpoint or a physiological standpoint. And so that may require, if I see that elevated, I may require my client to go for further testing to rule out anything more serious. And then, of course, zonulin, we do get to see if there is a gluten sensitivity. So we get to see that here. This anti-gliadin also tells us a sign of gluten sensitivity, dairy sensitivity as well. We get to see that here. And then this secretary IgA tells us the gut immune response. So, how is our immune system functioning? Because our immune system actually starts in the gut. So, is it weak? Is it strong? We get to see that here. And if we see a weakened immune system, that is likely going to make it more difficult to fight off these pathogens, these bacterial overgrowths. So, we're going to need to do a little bit of immune support to allow the body to heal, get rid of those overgrowths. Okay. Same thing, if the immune system is in this heightened state, we're going to need to calm things down so the body's not always reacting to environmental triggers, to foods like food sensitivities. I see that a lot when the immune system is overactivated. I see food sensitivities as a result. So I know this was a lot of information. Um, if you're anything like me, I'm the kind of person that likes to see the data, likes to see and understand and know why, like, or how this would be helpful. So we really do get a ton of information from this test. Okay. So super quick. I know I've been talking and rambling on a little bit. This is what we do after. So once I get the test results, it's really my job to put forward that plan for my clients. And I like to give them a breakdown. I like to connect the dots and explain, why each imbalance on the test is actually associated with the symptom they're experiencing. That way it's really clear. We can understand, okay, why am I experiencing chronic fatigue? Why am I experiencing bloating, heartburn, etc.? Well, it's because of XYZ that we're seeing on this test. So I'm gonna take you through it very quickly. This is something that I would put together for a client. I'd give them a summary. I like to kind of come up with themes that are going on. So then we know exactly what are the things that we need to focus on and heal and to support. So, this client, we got to get rid of the H. pylori. We got to support that Akkermansia, that bacteria. And like I said, I'm just going to go through this super, super quickly. Um, we get that full report. And then, of course, we talk about the plan. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go from here? So, for this particular client, step number one, we've got to get rid of that H. pylori. We've got to begin to improve that microbial diversity, meaning the good bacteria. So I do put together custom recommendations, like how can we reduce inflammation in the body, specific diet, lifestyle, like nervous system support. We talk about strategies there. I give them specific nutrients, foods to follow. Does it make sense to follow a particular diet for a short period of time? What foods should we be adding? In some cases, what foods should we be removing? By this point, my clients generally have a solid foundation of diet. We've already worked on that. And then, of course, I take them through this oral protocol. I would not recommend doing that unless you know exactly what you're dealing with, which is why I'm going through this pretty quickly, because I don't recommend just following this because this may not work for you, right? And then, of course, I get into some of the supplements that are going to be very strategic, work towards what we are trying to eradicate. And then I always have sort of next steps and a plan, an outline of what that journey is going to look like moving forward. Okay. So I hope you found this helpful. Like I said, I wanted to give a little bit of a background, a walkthrough of what this looks like, because I do get a lot of questions. And like I said, if you're anything like me, you like to see the data, and like to understand how this is going to help you. So I hope you found this helpful. Of course, if you've got questions, as always, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to chat about this further, and we'll talk soon. Take care.